Hello, fellow Megatennists, and welcome to a special episode of the Megaten Minute. Today I'm going to be going over the survey that I sent about a week ago, 2 weeks ago actually. And this survey really just covers things that I was curious about. People kind of wondered if I was like an Atlas staff working undercover, or people thought that, I was trying to steal their identity or something. No, this survey was really just me trying to get some of that information that Atlas had gleaned with its surveys in the past and make it public so everyone could know, how long people have been fans, what kind of things people want, and what kind of things people are interested in. So without further ado, I'm going to go through some of this and I will explain some of my choices for those of you who are kind of confused by any of it at all. So the first question is, how long have you been a fan of Megaten? And really, the whole point was just to kind of figure out maybe what games or what era, got you hooked. So if you're 10 to 20, you probably came in with Revelations of Demon Slayer, Revelations Persona, Jack Bros, that, or you could have been even early PS2 era with like Nocturne, which is where I came in. 5 to 10 years, that's like the DS, 3DS era. 5 to 1 years, that's Persona 5, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux. So overwhelmingly a lot more new fans. So 50% of the people who responded to the survey are new. 2 people skipped this question, which is funny, but I digress. So most of the fans are new, is the general consensus, are relatively new. The next question is, which sub-series have you played? This one is a little misleading because I left out by mistake and some information. So we'll have to go through some of the other, where I let you fill in with what other thing you think you might have played that you didn't see on the list. As you can see, most of the people who responded actually played Persona. Not so many people played mainline, but overwhelmingly, nearly everyone who responded had played one or the other, or both. Half about played these 3, Devil Summoner, Devil Survivor, and Digital Devil Saga. And less than 10% have played Last Bible and Majin Tensei, with more people playing Devil Children, which I find very incredible. I'm going to take a lot of these answers to be real, and I really am surprised that 64 people have played Devil Children, of which there's only 2 games that are available in English. Devil Children are under the names Demi-Kid's Light version and Dark version, whereas Last Bible, all the games are in English now, and Majin Tensei Majin Tensei 2 is, Majin Tensei 1 will be in English fairly soon. So here it is written out in percentages and stuff that might be easier to digest for some people. And we're going to read the responses. I tried to mark some of them to the best of my ability, but this is the only question where I did this filtering system and then I stopped. So we have a couple of things. People confusing what constitutes mainline, and I'll kind of go over my opinion on it. Which my opinion is basically, if Alice considers it mainline, then it's mainline. Strange Journey is considered mainline, so it's mainline. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is kind of a spiritual successor, so I call it like a spiritual Megaten. Jack Bros is a one-off. It's not really connected to anything, and it doesn't have any gameplay or any other siblings or games with similar gameplay. Synchronicity Prologue is technically mainline because it's a prequel to Strange Journey. Tokyo Mirage Sessions, again, it's a one-off spiritual successor. Catherine, also kind of a spiritual Megaten. And what I mean by spiritual Megaten is it either has gameplay that's similar, or it's just made by one of the teams that makes Megaten games. For Catherine, it's specifically made by P Studio. The remake is handled by Studio Zero, which, those are like the alumni from P Studio moving on. Kyoyaku is Megami Tensei 1 and 2. That's the games that precede Shin Megami Tensei. So this, I guess they misunderstood and thought that Kyoyaku meant the second game, whereas this is the first game, this is the second game, and first game bundled together. D2 is a mainline, so I put that there as well. Raido is a devil summoner, even if it feels like it's its own thing. It's part of the devil summoner genre. Think of it the same way that Persona changed its style with Hoshino. Raido changes the devil summoner formula, so it doesn't mean that the previous Persona games are not related. It just means that the games evolved. You wouldn't remove Nocturne from the main line just because it's different in gameplay. Strange Journey, mainline, Raido, Devil Summoner. As you can see, this one is interesting because I found out fairly recently through translator Tom's Twitter that Ronde is not actually a Majin Tensei game, so I consider it a one-off. It's not part of this. So if you voted for this, having played Ronde and no other Majin Tensei, I'm sorry to say, but that's not correct. Persona Q is a Persona game. Jack Bros is a one-off. Mach-N X, which I'm surprised anyone put. Spiritual Successor, Spiritual Megaten. So all in all, about 5 people put Tokyo Mirage Sessions. About 4 people put Catherine, and I think 2 or 3 put Mach-N X. And then quite a few people put Jack Bros, which is interesting. And by quite a few, I mean about 10 or less than 10. I saw Gaiten Tensei. Gaiten Tensei is interesting because it's not actually mainline, and it's not, and it's technically kind of a one-off. It's really a sequel / just taking place in the same world as Tokyo Revelations, which is why it's called Gaiten Tensei Tokyo Revelation. Well, it's called, yeah. So that Tokyo Revelation is a manga that retells the story of Shin Megami Tensei 1, but with different character names and just slight differences. Well, quite a few differences. And Gaiten Tensei takes place in the same world, but in a different time, or a different part of the time, I guess, timeline. A lot of people put Synchronicity Prologue, and then I made this title marker Unfunny Joke because got quite a few not good jokes. Some people think that they're funny. Sad. Like, this is sad. I wish that if someone was going to make a joke, they would actually do a good job. But anyway, I digress. So the next one is, which series are you most interested in? Which series interests you most, I guess, is the correct way to phrase it. One person skipped this, which is really interesting. So mainline, overwhelmingly 80%, so low 80, so it's a B-. Persona with half. And then these 3 with about 30%. Interesting considering that these 3 are the same 3 that kind of scored high. So 50% of the people play these, are a little over 50%. But only 30% of the people who played it, are in theory 30% of the people who played it, of that 50 are actually interested in more. Last Bible, Majin Tensei, and other scored astronomically low. I left out Devil Children because I assumed that I would just get a bunch of meme responses, and I also didn't really think that many people would be interested in Devil Children. Alright, so really quickly, here we go. So Ronde, I can't tell if it's a joke. This time around, Jack Bros. So we're getting a couple of these responses that are like not necessarily Megaten, which is why I didn't put them in as a checkable answer. Persona 1 and 2 specifically, which is weird. Here's like the one, and then here's the meme. So in general, this time around, there's less joke answers, more serious ones. But even the ones, I spoke too soon. Even the ones that are here, most of them are just either confusion, like I specifically put that Strange Journey is a mainline, and here we have someone still putting Strange Journey as something they're interested in, despite it being a mainline title. Unless they're trying to be specific, which is what I figured some of these might be, is people trying to be very specific. And yeah. So which artist do you like most? This is another very interesting one to me. I just wanted to see if Kaneko is still as popular given the rise in popularity of Persona 5. So I wanted to see if somehow Sojima would rank closer. But as you can see, overwhelmingly the fan base gravitates towards Kaneko. Yasuda, who does Devil Survivor, scored almost the same as Doi, who is the new artist for mainline. Really wild considering how much I see Yasuda made fun of. But then when you look at the amount of votes, it's only 32 to 34. So it could just be that people, when put in the box, only chose, and were only able to choose one, they chose Kaneko. Doi, surprisingly low. I'm actually very surprised how low Doi scored by comparison. All right. What are you most excited for? So this is supposed to be an attempt to gauge what people care about, whether it's the translations or the new content or just the remakes. As you can see, SMT5 scored the highest with 76% of people interested in this, which I understand fully. It's a new game rather than a retread, whereas Persona 5 Royale scored second highest, and it's a remake of Persona 5, which is really interesting to me because this number doesn't really correlate, I feel like, with the interest in Doi as an artist, or it's about the same. So the same people who are more excited for Persona 5 are than anything else are seemingly the same people who preferred Tsushima. These other ones are kind of hard to read, so we just gotta look down here. Persona 5S, which is Strikers, the Musou game, astronomically low. 4 people out of 604 or 603 that responded are interested in Persona 5 Strikers. And that's really interesting to me because although I understand that Persona 5 Strikers is not something for everyone, not everyone likes Musou games, especially one where we have almost no information on. But for it to score this low compared to some of these other things, like especially a retread, a remake, a port, enhanced port, or whatever you want to call it, for Persona 5R, it's really surprising to me. And then fan translation scored pretty high, or at least I was surprised by how many people are more excited for translations than these. But there's a lot of translations in the works. And the other, which I put to specify, where we have a lot of like wish fulfilling. So this is a thing that we see with the fan base where people want something that there's definitely no possibility that it will exist, or there's very slim possibility. So Persona 3 Remake, Tokyo Mirage Sessions expanded on, which I am on board with, and I feel like out of some of these, this is probably the most likely to happen. We got Nocturne 3, Nocturne Remake, unlikely. Raito 3, very unlikely. Persona 7, Bad Meme. Jack Bros 2, very unlikely. Catherine Fobody, I forgot to put that. I forgot to put Persona Q2 as well, but no one wrote in Persona Q2, which speaks volumes to how much people care about it. Some of these are pretty interesting, the responses. But for the most part, these written in ones are kind of like, they're either low tier jokes or they don't answer the question in a way that makes sense with wanting another Devil Survivor, because the question isn't which game would you most likely to see, it's what are you excited for in terms of what's actually going to happen. So maybe I have to word that question better. That's fault on my part. Okay, this one. Where do you communicate with the fan base? This one was really interesting to me because it was partly to gauge where the information was coming from, but also what people prefer in terms of their mode of talking about Megaten. And as you can see, most of the responses seem to be from Reddit, and most people prefer to use Reddit. So I've only posted this on 2 subs, the Persona sub and the Megaten subreddit, and I have an inkling, or I have a strong feeling that they're all or mostly from the Megaten subreddit. A mistake I made when I was making this is that I initially was going to kind of post on one social media platform and then wait a few hours or even a day or two and then post it on the second one and then keep doing that over and over until like I covered all the different social media. The problem with that is that if I posted it and it gained traction because someone more popular or other people started to share it, then it would kind of make the data harder to see. But I wanted to basically see which responses were coming from which fan bases or which parts of the fandom. and kind of just correlating some things. For instance, the really bad meme jokes or meme replies, I almost certainly know are from the subreddit, and I wanted to be able to know for a fact, oh, these jokes are from the subreddit. This high interest in Persona is mostly from the Twitter, or etc. etc. 4chan, unfortunately, I added very late into the survey, so I think 200 people responded by the time I had put 4chan, which eliminated 200 potential responses saying 4chan. This one was the most interesting, with nearly a quarter of the people saying that they don't participate in the fan base at all. But then, how did you get the survey? But also, I guess that means that they either lurkers or they abstain in general from actually talking, which is fair. I didn't put a write-in answer because I covered most of them, and I didn't want to do social media platforms that have really low interaction or interactive capabilities. As you can see, something like YouTube, not a lot of people are watching, are specifically looking at content creators for Megaten. Although I do see quite a few channels who focus solely on Persona with a few thousand subscribers. Not a few thousand, like thousands. Okay. Which do you prefer? So this was kind of like the type of content you consume while communicating with the fan base. So obviously, this one kind of banks on the idea that you're interacting with the fan base at all. So I did anticipate more skips than normal, and yeah, this one has the highest amount of skips with 8, which is still fairly high considering how many people put they don't interact with the fan base at all. But that doesn't mean that they don't like the cosplay or do fan art or any of that stuff. As you can see, serious discussion has the highest amount. So that's interesting because in general, people are always curious about timelines, or they're curious about which games are like the best or the worst, or plot elements that don't make sense to them, or even just strategy guides. So this makes the most sense to me. And then I also see a high volume of memes, and these two things pretty much go hand in hand. I think that they're like the yin and yang of the fan base. Fan art scored higher than I thought. Fan art cosplay scored really low, surprisingly low. And collecting, was about where I thought it'd be. And other was one of those things where I just wanted to see what I didn't anticipate. But most people responded with other, as in selecting like serious discussion and meme posting, or all of the above, or different degrees of wanting it. So all in all, it just seems like in general people like all types of content, but they mostly want to talk about the games in a serious platform, or they want to be able to post memes. Looking at some of these, geez. I think one person wrote guffaw on each single post or each single write-in answer, and gotta say, very not funny. News was something I didn't anticipate. Some people really want to know Megaten news, and it's hard to aggregate that because, all you have is Persona Central, and then you have some of the more shady or dubious websites that will either just copy-paste stuff from Persona Central or from other news outlets, or you just have your favorite content creators possibly sharing stuff. And that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah. Someone actually wrote in none, so I guess they're one of the ones that don't interact with the fan base at all. Helping newbies, that's a very interesting one. Alright. 3 more questions left. What do you want Atlas USA to do better? So this one I'm just going to explain a couple things. What I mean by localization and censorship was really more just, do you think that there's something that they're not doing adequately? Maybe the actual localization is not as faithful to the original content, or maybe there's just too many typos or grammatical errors, or maybe you don't like that there's changes that either, a good example would be Tokyo Mirage Sessions and how they essentially changed how the clothes looked to be less revealing, even when said clothes were a wedding dress, for instance. And I wanted to basically get a read on that, even though that's not Atlas USA, that was Nintendo of America for Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Bring/make more merch, port old Megaten games. This was more like on an official level, so with the high volume of translations we're getting, especially because translator Tom is just on it. Like, it was more of seeing if people wanted those games and wanted other games like the PS2 games on other platforms, like maybe the PC or maybe on the PS4. It was kind of just like a broad question that was approaching all interpretations of that. And it scored the highest, which makes the most sense to me because I think the more opportunities or the more platforms you have to play the games, the better it's going to be represented and the more people will know about it. This one, promote mainline more, was more of like a trick. I just wanted to see how many people were going to actually put that. I don't think that it's effective for them to promote more, because if you look at the way promotion works or the way advertising works, if you send out 100 flyers, you're gonna get a 10% return. So that means that 10% of the people will actually respond. So out of 100 people, 10 will respond. So out of 1,000 people, 100 might respond. And while that seems like it's not that bad, it's kind of bad because advertising inadvertently costs a lot. Unless these days it's a little better because you have social network influencers and whatever that can do it, and they'll get paid a lot less than if you had an ad running in the beginning of each YouTube video. So promoting is interesting because I don't think it's effective. Take Persona Q2, they had that Macaron event that had a historical or very low turnout compared to the other Macaron events for Persona, and if the interest isn't there, then it's just not going to happen, and that's my take anyway. So interact with fans more. This was kind of like people who really liked the days where you had John Harden who would respond to people on Reddit, and he was very active, and where the Atlas USA's Twitter account wasn't just like kind of posting the most blasé, bland tweets, but rather more engaging tweets, and the people who ran that would use their like personal Twitter accounts to kind of reinforce this sense of community, which not a lot of people care about apparently. But I think that that's something that's important. The bigger the company gets, the less likely it is that that sense of community will be there anymore, and that's fine. That just kind of comes with the territory, in my opinion. Make better limited editions was something I put for me, actually, and 4 or 3 other people put that voted that. I voted for it too. And then bring games sooner. That was kind of like a jab at what Sega had really or said as an official statement, where they would start to focus on international releases. Atlas is owned by Sega, and that would then mean to me that Atlas would aim for the same goal, but we haven't really gotten that. And the disparity between the release dates, while understandable, some people just want the games at the same time. It really helps to prevent spoilers, I think, because that's what happened to me. People played the Persona 5 game in Japanese, and they spoiled it for me. With the intention of making me frustrated, and that's what it is, So number 9, what kind of fan content do you like the best? This one was kind of weird because it's pretty much the same question as the other one where I put memes and whatnot, but I also wanted to see what people like when they specifically follow fans. So myself included, or Gnarly, or John Awesome, people who create content, maybe not specifically for Megaten all the time, but who have a heavy focus on Megaten and, aggregate followers as a result. I wanted to see what people liked the most from that type of person. Fan art and fanzine scored the highest, which is interesting considering that if we scroll up a bit, fan art didn't really score that high in terms of the kind of content people want. So I probably should have added serious discussion to that fan category content category, but I didn't for whatever reason, and that's my mistake. And I'll have to live with it. All right. YouTube content, which is, again, it kind of runs counter to the other response, but this is more specific to fan-made YouTube content as opposed to YouTube content that you would get from Atlas USA, I guess. Podcast scored relatively low. Unfortunate, I run that podcast. Trivia scored, better than I thought, which is good because I post trivia. Streaming scored the lowest, which I also understand. Most of these games are very long, and I don't think that they're particularly interesting for streaming purposes. Some games, I think, are a lot more interesting than others. Memes scored pretty high too. And then this is where I let people write in their responses. I actually haven't read the responses for this particular one. So pretty much all of them plus fan fiction. I didn't think of fan fiction. Game mods is another thing I didn't think of. Theories and discussion. So this is what I mean when I should have put discussion. Fan merch, which is something I should have added. Translations, which is, it's content, but I just didn't think about that one either. So basically, a lot of people wanted serious discussion, and I should have put that as an option. Yeah, lots of people want serious discussion. Translations of old interviews. You should follow DJ. They translate a lot of old interviews. This person cared enough to put don't care. Alright. Last one. Which alignment are you? This one was just a funny one, I thought. Mostly because people actually do care about alignments a lot. And I wanted to see what the alignment preference was for someone who actually responded to this sort of thing. Because, if you use like a Myers-Briggs personality test, there's certain people who are going to be more likely to respond to certain types of interactions or certain types of situations. And I was really interested to see who would be interested in responding specifically to a 10-question anonymous quiz posted by somebody who they might not know very well. And overwhelmingly, neutral was the alignment that people chose. Then, if you look here, law and chaos are nearly tied. Chaos winning out by 6%. I put persona user, which some people took issue with. Like, I literally saw people retweeting, putting, what alignment are you? Persona user, and as like a joke, which I get it. You don't understand the purpose. The purpose was basically if you are someone who maybe only played Persona and you're responding to this and you don't have a lot of experience with mainline or any of the other games, there's no reason for you to be like, oh yeah, my alignment is one of these. You're like, so this one was kind of to cover the people who prefer the Persona or prefer the idea of Persona over the different alignments, or they just didn't play the other games. So that's the logic I kind of had when I put Persona user as an option. It was more just to be like, yes, this is for the people who haven't. And I didn't want to do that for everything, so I didn't want to put like, oh, you're a devil summoner because you've only played Devil Summoner, or you're a digital devil because you only played the Digital Devil Saga. I really wanted to do a better, more likely catch-all, and I think that there's way more likely a chance that people have played Persona and not Megaten, rather than the other way around. Excuse me. Anyway, here's the other responses. Ha ha ha. So this one, I also gave the option to put other, or write in your responses, because I wanted to laugh and I thought people would be funny, or I wanted to see what people would put when given the option to put other. And yeah, most of it is just really bad. Like, ugh. So a lot of people put white, so I'm assuming that they're serious and they actually are. They actually prefer the white ending, or they're just all doing the same bland meme. Masubi, that's interesting. You didn't really see a lot of Nocturne options. True Demon, so then you're a puppet to Lucifer. Good job. The insensitive gay representation. Not gonna touch that. This one almost made me laugh. Almost. Depends on the game. True neutral. Masubi? Wow. So that's 2 Masubis. This must be Beadman, because there's no way. Anyway. And that's really it. I'm going to go ahead and publish the findings so that you guys could read it at your own leisure. Thank you all who responded. 606 is a lot of people. I didn't really anticipate that many people even wanting to do the survey in the first place. I actually kind of thought, okay, like I have like 1,000 followers, so 100 people will do it. 10%, the advertising thing I talked about. But to get 600 was really amazing, and I really want to thank everyone who like shared it, and I hope to do this again with maybe like some tweaks and maybe a little more depth, but I want to keep it really short so people will actually be more likely to finish it and not skip questions. So thank you guys who responded. Thank you for taking the time. Also, thanks for watching if you decided to watch this whole video. Sorry for all the random noises and stuff. Things are kind of hectic around here. And goodbye, fellow Megatennists.